Welcome to Dear Warriors. My name is Amy Vega, and I am your host. I have worked in the plasma industry for over 20 years. Throughout my career, I was blessed to have worked with the most incredible employees and met the most amazing donors and recipients of plasma. This podcast was started to bring to light what had been in the shadows, the rare disease community. Join me on Dear Warriors, where we will share stories of warriors and so much more. Hello everyone, it's Amy from Dear Warriors. Today I wanted to talk about loneliness. We all at one point in our lives have experienced the feeling of being alone. When friends or family forget to call, or as crazy as this sounds, being in a crowded room, yet feeling lonely. Loneliness is a serious thing. During this pandemic, being isolated, feeling alone made it difficult for many to handle, especially if you caught the virus. There's nothing more powerful than to have your loved ones near you when you are sick and you are trying to heal. In the rare disease community, loneliness feels different. The loneliness is not just about having friends or family near you. It is the loneliness in the disease. In this episode, I will be sharing something from a person I follow on a rare disease website. He wrote something so deep that I had to ask if it was okay for me to share. I think there is someone out there that may need to hear this. Nate B. at NB Striker, thank you for allowing me to share. Being alone with my thoughts is dangerous. Laying in my bed, like I do most of the time, I wonder when I finally get to die. My entire body hurts all the time. I'm sad, depressed, scared of everything. I simultaneously get joy when I hear, usually lurking on Facebook, about friends achieving goals, jobs, promotions, raises, new homes, etc. And feel incredibly sad because I'm just stuck. I can't remember the last time I laughed or even smiled. Happiness for me seems unrealistic at this point. What is realistic? Feeling nothing doesn't seem all that worthwhile either. I called my best friend 53 days ago. He texted back that he was busy and that he really should call me soon. This is the guy that I promised I'd call before making an attempt on my life. How did he know I was only calling because I miss him? I could just as easily be dead 53 days ago, and he hasn't found 2 minutes to call me. I haven't seen him in almost 2 years. I am so broken. My body is worn down. My brain is broken. I wanted to share that because that was so deep for me. This message is for everyone. It just takes a few minutes to text and say hello. You never know what someone is going through. Please check on family members. Please check on friends. To help me understand this feeling, there's no better person than to ask, and that's Allie. She's my co-host. Allie, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, sweetheart. How does that make you feel?
Oh, sad.
I know. It
Very
was
sad.
painfully sad when I read it, and I had to share it.
That's what I don't think people understand. When somebody is feeling lonely to that degree, they probably won't tell you that they're feeling that alone. They might not know how to ask for help, but people are busy with work and family stuff. Right now, there's a lot more on people's plates with the pandemic. But even before that, people were busy, and people become too busy to call. People become too busy to pick up the phone and speak to someone, especially nowadays. We are in the middle of I'm going to steal the words from the latest documentary that was just shared on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma. We are in the middle of a very dangerous social dilemma where we as a society have become too attached to social media to communicate, and we've become detached from each other on an interpersonal face-to-face basis, even a video face-to-face because of the pandemic, I'll say. We are relying on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to communicate with one another, which is making it more difficult, I think, for people who are feeling certain ways right now. Like the set of emotions that you just shared with me. Tagging him in a photo on Facebook isn't going to fix the situation.
I agree. It was painful. I read that and I was like, oh my God, if I could just reach out and just hold him. Like I didn't know, this is the first time I've actually read something so that has hit me so deep like that. And I was pacing in the room and I was like, my God, I need to reach out to this person and let him know that it's okay. And I sent him an email and I said, I hope you're okay. And then, the next day I asked if I can share it because I feel like there are people out there. This is why we do this, right? There are people out there that could be listening that are going through the same thing. And there's a different type of loneliness. There's loneliness from friends and family. But having loneliness in a disease is different. And you are the perfect person that can explain that, because loneliness from family and friends because of a pandemic, I get that. But loneliness in a rare disease community, loneliness of a disease itself is so deep because nobody really understands your disease. And so you feel isolated.
Yes, it's very isolating. And to take your words, it's isolating even among family and friends. It's isolating because nobody can really understand what it's like to walk in your shoes every day and fight for your health to such a degree that you don't even want to live through it anymore. It's such a struggle. You don't even know if you have the strength to keep fighting. It's such an isolating, misunderstood, lonely journey. And again, even if you have blood relatives who are there, I'm placing air quotes right now, they still don't understand. It's very hard to explain what it's like unless you're actually living it.
Right. It's like we're lost for words. We're like feeling this. I could see it through the camera because I could see you. And it's like, I could see that what I read to you has really hit you in a way. I know that you had told us that you were in a very dark place when Big D Day came and, you were diagnosed and you were going through this. That's another thing that I learned. D-Day is really big in this rare community. It either can make you happy or not happy, but relieved because you finally figured out or you finally have the big D diagnosis, or it can really break you. Like, oh, now I have to deal with this. Now there is a name to what I'm feeling, and I have a name, whether it's, whatever rare disease that it's out there. And now you have to kind of change your whole entire life, right? So D-Day is a big thing as well. But you had told us that you were in a dark place, and I figured you can you can kind of explain this better for me. I could explain loneliness to a lot of different people because loneliness, being alone, just because you're by yourself is totally different than this. So that's why I think that your words can really help somebody right now, and you can probably bring somebody out of the darkness. I'm sorry. I know that's a lot on you.
When you receive a diagnosis, like you said, Amy, again, echoing your words here, it gives you validation, first and foremost. I will say for myself, and anyone listening may agree with me, especially if they're battling an invisible disease. When you have that diagnosis, you have your card of credibility. You have the power to then turn around and say to those people, it is real. It's not in my head. I have a diagnosis. And suddenly you have the power to stand above all of the ridicule, all of the judgment, all of the criticism, all of the doubt, all of the mistrust, all of the lack of support, everything. That diagnosis is that's your ticket to say, you no longer have that authority over me. You no longer can say that what I'm going through isn't real. I have a diagnosis now, which means that there is a word I can use to say to someone, no, it is real. It's XYZ. And you can shut down all of that negative feedback from people. Maybe not all of it, but a large portion of it. It's a lot easier to stand your ground and speak up for yourself if you can give it a name. Giving it a name it brings it into existence. Not that which is a double-edged sword, right? Because you don't want it necessarily to be in existence. You don't want that to be your reality, but at the same time, when you're battling something every day that nobody understands and you don't have a name for it, it's a lot harder to receive the proper support that you deserve. If you are talking about something no one knows, but once you have that diagnosis and you can use that diagnosis to bring people to a higher level of awareness, it's a strength for you. But at the same time, like I said, once you have that diagnosis, it can be terrifying at the same time. I remember when I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, I had already done research prior to receiving my diagnosis, as I had suspected that's what I was suffering from. So I already had knowledge of what that would mean if that was the case. So once I got confirmation, I was sort of taken aback and I thought, oh, no, that's not... I didn't want that diagnosis. I mean, did I want that diagnosis? Yes, it is a diagnosis. I knew that would be my diagnosis. I had done lots of research up until receiving the positive blood test, but no, I don't actually want that diagnosis because I know what that means. I know it's a lifelong battle. I know that there's criticism. I know doctors lose their medical licenses trying to treat it. I know it costs thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to treat. I know that people commit suicide who struggle with chronic Lyme. I know that chronic Lyme will impact my career. It will impact my ability to have children. It will impact my social life. And this goes for the majority of these invisible diagnoses. All of a sudden, once you have that, you realize it's a strength in one light, but at the same time, it's a painful awakening. On the other hand, it's a very strange combination of emotion. So like I said, once I got that diagnosis, on one hand, I felt very empowered and I wanted to send a mass email to everybody in my life up until that point. And I was in my early 20s. So I wanted to send a mass email to hundreds of people who had criticized me over the years and say, it's real. I got a diagnosis. Period. Sincerely, Allie Brown. I wasn't going to forgive them. I wasn't going to ask for anything from them, but I wanted them to know it was real. But then at the same time, I knew what that meant for me. That meant a lifelong battle with something that still wasn't entirely received as real in the medical community. And then I got scared and I thought, wait, no, that's not the diagnosis I wanted. I didn't want that diagnosis. Did I say I wanted that diagnosis? I wanted a diagnosis that has a brighter outlook. I don't know what that diagnosis would be, but that's not the diagnosis I wanted because I've done lots of research on that and I know what this now means for me. So can I get a different diagnosis? That's not the diagnosis that I wanted. So it's funny. It's a double-edged sword. At least it was for me. And listeners out there, feel free to chime in. I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, it was a mix of emotions. And once I found out I had that diagnosis, I sort of became a little self-destructive. And I don't know why my mind went there, but I guess I thought, I'm going to be fighting this for the rest of my life. Let me see how low I can get. I don't know. I guess I knew that the battle wasn't going to end, and I knew that it wouldn't kill me, which is the other funny thing. A lot of these I've found in my years of meeting other people in these support communities that some of us, I will only speak for myself, our listeners will have to chime in, but at least for me, one of the other ironies of all of this is these chronic illnesses sometimes do not kill you. So you just suffer, which is why sometimes, again, I will only speak for myself. We will have to wait for our listeners to tune in. But for me, sometimes it's that I just would want to die instead of knowing that it will just keep me in this steady space of suffrage for decades to come. It doesn't kill you sometimes, right? So it's kind of like, great. So it will be just bad enough that it keeps me limited in my social events. It keeps me limited in my dietary options. It keeps me limited in my mental strength, my mental clarity. It keeps me, it fluctuates. The flares come and go. You go through periods of doing well, and then you think, oh my gosh, I am in such a good place right now. Nobody panic. Don't move. Don't touch anything. Don't move anything. I seem to be doing okay. I'm not really sure why I'm doing okay right now because I've been doing the same things all this time, and it's been years since I've been out of a flare, but for whatever reason, right now I'm not in a flare. So nobody move. Don't move a muscle. Let's see how long I can stay out of a flare. It's such an unpredictable thing, and sometimes you can't even figure out how to get out of a flare. And then when you're out of it, you're like, oh my God, this is the first time in a long time I felt really good. I hope nothing changes. I hope nothing happens. I hope whatever pieces of the puzzle fell into place, I hope they stay together because I like how I feel right now. But I'm scared that tomorrow I will wake up and be right back in a flare for no reason that I can identify, at least. So you're sort of in a constant tug of war, and you're always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's such a cliche thing to say, but once you get out of a flare, if you don't really know how you got out of it, then I think, at least for me, again, listeners, please chime in to say how you feel on this, but if I somehow find myself having just exited a several year-long flare, I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to make too many plans. I don't want to be too social because I'm afraid it'll just set me right back into a flare. So I don't know. It has a way of kind of keeping you prisoner a little bit, at least in your mind. You always think, okay, so I'm doing really good. How far should I go with this? How ambitious should I be? How many big things should I plan? How many places should I go? Who should I call? Who should I see? Who should I hang out with while I'm out of this flare? I don't know how long it'll last.
Yeah, because the disease owns you now. Because now you have a diagnosis and you no longer have charge of your life. I guess that's the best way I can explain that. You no longer have control. The disease has control. So when you wake up in the morning, the disease could say, today you're going to have a flare. And that's it. Everything that you have planned has gone out the window because now you're trying to get better. You're out of control. And I think a lot of people feel that way. They feel that they have no control over their body. And that's what kind of puts people in a dark place, I feel. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't know. I'm learning from
No,
you.
I mean, I think having control over our body is an illusion. At least when they're from what I've learned over the years that I've been in this community, and I've been an invisible warrior for most of my life, most of my existence, I have learned that when there's autoimmune disease involved, the idea that you have control over your body is an illusion. There's always something going on behind the scenes, and you just have to accept the fact that sometimes things are not going to go your way, and you just have to be ready to say, okay, so today is a couch day, and hopefully you have a support system. Hopefully you have a network. Hopefully you have a parent or a partner or a brother or a sister or a best friend or a coworker, somebody who can be there to help you when that happens. Because I understand it's easy for me to say you can have a couch day, but can you really have a couch day? Don't you have bills to pay? I mean, if your body decides you need a couch day, but you actually can't have a couch day, those are the days that you really need someone to help you through. Those are the days that you need a support system in place, because sometimes you can't just take a couch day. Even if your body says with every grain of its existence, you need a couch day today, you might be saying, well, I have a deadline that I have to meet today. How am I supposed to have a couch day? And that's when your support system comes into play. And if you're listening right now and you don't have a support system, there are things you can do. There are support groups you can join. You can find a group of like-minded people. Nowadays on social media, there's all kinds of support networks. There's podcasts like us. You could ask a coworker to a lunch brunch. You could reach out to someone you work with, and maybe they have resources. Maybe your employer has resources. You could reach out to your local library and see if they have, right now during the pandemic, I imagine their resources would be different, but you could see if they have any kind of virtual get-togethers, anything that would provide you with some support. Again, those are the days when having a support system matters the most. It's when your body decides to turn against you and you can't listen. You might have a kid at home that you need to take care of. I mean, those are the hard days. Those are the days when your network of co-warriors are there to help lift you up that day and carry you through to the next day. Because sometimes your bad day lasts a day. Sometimes it lasts more than a day. Sometimes it lasts months. Sometimes it lasts years. That's why not going through this journey alone is very important.
Exactly. Yes, I think that during the pandemic and just without the pandemic, let's just erase the pandemic, right? We need to check on people. We need to, if we haven't called a friend, like in this reading, 53 days ago, my God, so much can happen 53 days ago. Just text, it takes 2 seconds. Hey, how you doing today? Or are you okay? Some people just need that distraction because the pain is so much, or they're so alone, or they just need to be distracted. And I think that's really important, to try to be there. Even if you can't be there in the present, especially now, right? We can't be there. We can't be around a lot of people, but just write a letter. What I did during this pandemic was I got a stationery and I started writing to people, just random people, because I just felt that receiving a letter during some lonely, hard times was unique and different. And a handwritten letter goes a long, long way. I know that it's easier to type, right? I could have typed the letter in probably 2 or 3 minutes and sent it off. But when you take the time to write, it's a different feel. It's a different feeling, So
that's actually something that I have That's actually something that I have on my notes, Amy. I write a letter to someone. It takes little resources, a pen and a paper. I feel the same way. Writing someone a handwritten letter nowadays is so impactful. Nobody does it anymore. And if you could do that, do you know how much that would brighten someone's day to get a handwritten letter from you? It's huge. It's a huge gesture.
Yes. Nowadays, back in the day, I remember growing up, that's all we did. We used to write to each other, on like real paper and use the real pen.
Mhm.
And so, but that's
Mhm.
just so something that it's not happening today. And I feel like that's a very important thing. I think that's a very, I don't know, it's a great gift to receive that letter.
Mhm.
Because you took the time to sit down and write. It's different when you're typing. You could just type
Mhm.
away. Something about a handwritten gesture is just amazing. It's an amazing feeling. So my advice to the listeners is, if you haven't text your friend, if you haven't called your friend, well, write to your friend. Like, write to somebody,
Mhm.
especially during these uncertain times. I think it's important. Can you just imagine laying on those couch days and you received a letter and you're sitting there reading the letter? That's a nice distraction. But
Mhm.
I think it's a special little gift that doesn't cost much.
Mhm. Exactly. I totally agree.
Well, I'm so glad you came on, because I was feeling so sad. I wanted to, I'm the type of person that I want to help everybody. And I know I can't do that, right? I can't just,
Mhm.
I can't save the world kind of thing. My husband told me all the time, you can't save the world, but I wish I could. You know what I mean? I wish I had that. But
Mhm.
this podcast is important. This podcast at least could let me speak to people, and bringing your expertise on, and you allowing me to learn from you and learn what it's like to be lonely in the disease is different. And I'm so glad that you were able to bring some light.
I'm very, very glad I was able to talk on this subject with you as well. And just to reiterate one last time, I do have a special angel in my life. She's been one of my best friends for, I guess it's almost been a decade now. And I actually met her through my blog. She has sent me a postcard for every holiday for years, and she sends me letters on it on any random day of the week. At times, not a holiday necessarily, she'll still send me a handwritten letter or a card. And I have to say, out of every other form of support that I've received over the years, her letters and cards have meant the most to me. So, speaking as someone who has been on the receiving end of these letters, they mean a lot to people, especially if you're having a couch day, or if you're in one of those places emotionally that you're sort of feeling like you can't get out of. You are so tangled up in the struggle and the ongoing pain of your suffering that you can't call anyone yourself, and you are just you're alive, but you are very much struggling to make it day to day. If you were to receive a letter in the mail, a handwritten letter, it would have a tremendous impact on your emotional health. So just to reiterate, sending someone a handwritten letter is huge.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for jumping in and helping me. I really appreciate it. And we will be back on another episode. Hopefully, it'll be a lot cheerer. I don't know, a lot chipper. I just, sometimes we need to talk about these difficult things. It's important. And I hope that if you're out there, you can write to us. Even if you don't want to come to the show and you just want to write to us, you can drop us a few lines at mystory@dearwarriors.com. You could, if you want to just directly send a letter to Allie, title it for Allie. Allie will receive it, or if it's just for the both of us. If you want us to read a letter or poem or just a few words, we will do that on the show if you're not ready to come on. We would love to have you, of course, but if you can't, for whatever reason, we will read your letter or poem or a message. We are not just sharing stories on Dear Warriors. Our goal is to help change lives. And when you share this podcast, you are helping to change lives too. Listen to this podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and God bless.